The morning exploded with chaos, a symphony of bellowing cows and the sharp crunch of gravel under my boots. I stood frozen in the dawn's haze, coffee mug burning my palm, feed bucket swinging in my other hand, staring at the Audacity parked across my barn doors. A gleaming black Cadillac Escalade, license plate screaming Diana 1, squatted like a smug monarch, blocking my entire operation. My 34 Holsteins wailed inside, their udders heavy, hooves stomping in a restless rhythm that matched the pounding in my chest. This wasn't just a car in the wrong spot. This was a declaration of war. I'm Jake Harlan, third-generation dairy farmer on this 120-acre patch of Virginia soil, where the air smells of hay, manure, and freedom. My barn, weathered but proud, has stood since 1897, long before the Whispering Pines subdivision sprouted its cookie-cutter mansions at the edge of my land. 3 months ago, Diana Wentworth moved into the biggest of those Hasisis stucco palace with a 6-car garage and fake Roman columns that looked like they were ordered from a catalog called Suburban Excess. She arrived with her HOA presidency, her manicure nails, and a mission to civilize everything that didn't match her vision of country chic perfection. I wasn't part of that vision. Neither were my cows. Yesterday, it was a typed letter slid under my truck's wiper, whining about how my unsightly split-rail fence was devaluing the aesthetic harmony of the neighborhood. The day before, she'd left a glossy pamphlet on my porch, embracing modern land use, a guide to replacing outdated farming practices. I chuckled then. Now, with her SUV choking my morning routine, laughter was the last thing on my mind. I muttered a promise to myself, half joking, as I trudged barefoot through the dew. If that car's still there, I'm milking these cows right through her windshield. I didn't think I'd have to mean it. I circled the Cadillac, hoping Diana was inside, so I could give her a piece of my mind. No luck. The car was locked tight, a yoga mat on the passenger seat, a half-melted latte in the cup holder, and a sun visor embroidered with some inspirational nonsense about living your truth. The nerve of her. My cows' chorus grew louder, a desperate edge to their moos. Every minute they stayed pinned up, the pressure built in their udders and in my patience. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail, her syrupy voice promising to get back to you with positivity. I called the tow company next. "Sorry, Jake," said Mitch, the dispatcher. "HOA property's a gray zone. Unless it's a fire hazard or you've got a sheriff's order. My hands are tied." I hung up, cursing under my breath. That's when I heard a deep, guttural bellow from Clara, my lead cow. It wasn't just a moo. It was a warning, the kind she gave when she was done waiting. I caught her eye through the barn's slatted window, her big brown gaze saying, "Fix this, or I will." I raised my hands in surrender. "All right, Clara, we're moving the obstacle." The main barn doors were blocked, but there was another way. The rear doors, rarely used, opened onto a steep, muddy slope leading to the lower pasture. They were a last resort, but Diana had pushed me to desperation. I yanked on my boots, fired up the old John Deere tractor, and rumbled to the back of the barn. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and diesel. I unhitched the heavy chains from the wall, looped them around the Cadillac's rear axle, and hitched them to the tractor. The SUV gleamed in the morning light, all polished arrogance. No one parks like that by accident. She knew. I eased the tractor into gear, the tow strap pulling taut. The Cadillac groaned, tires scraping against gravel, then slid into the mud with a satisfying squelch. 5 minutes later, I dragged it around the barn and into the cow-painted swampy corner of the property where the ground never quite dried. I unhitched the chains, parked the tractor, and swung open the rear barn doors. 34 cows burst out like a stampede, some galloping, some waddling, all of them eyeing the shiny new intruder in their domain. Cows are curious creatures, emotional and opinionated. Clara marched straight to the driver's side, snorting hot breath onto the window. Daisy chewed the antenna like it was a stalk of corn. Mabel kicked a spray of mud onto the hood, and Rosie, God bless her, hoisted her front hooves onto the rear bumper, rocking the car like she was claiming it for the herd. By the time I climbed to the barn loft for a better view, the Cadillac was a masterpiece of chaos. cow slobber streaking the windows, hoof prints denting the hood, and a fresh pile of manure steaming on the roof. I laughed so hard my sides ached. Then came the piercing, theatrical wail from the end of the driveway. Diana had returned, clutching a leather tote bag like it was her last grip on sanity. Her blonde hair, usually blow-dried to perfection, frizzed in the humidity. She stared at her SUV, now a barnyard art project, and pointed a trembling finger at me. This is vandalism. Destruction of property. I'm calling my lawyer. I leaned out from the loft, coffee mug raised. Next time, try the visitor lot. She didn't leave. Instead, she dialed someone, her voice rising to a pitch that could shatter glass. Health hazard. Criminal behavior, she shrieked into the phone. Meanwhile, Clara leaned harder on the hood, groaning with satisfaction. I whistled the cows back to the pasture, though Rosie lingered, still licking the side mirror like it was a salt block. I towed the SUV out of the pen and parked it by the road, its once pristine paint now crusted with mud and mystery smears. Diana watched, fuming, as I waved cheerfully and headed to the house. By noon, the HOA cavalry arrived, 3 golf carts emblazoned with the Whispering Pines logo, like they were rolling in for a military op. Diana led the charge, flanked by Marjorie, who wore her HOA badge like a Secret Service agent, and Ted, who nodded at everything to avoid picking a fight. They parked by my porch, and Diana dismounted with the flair of a soap opera villain. "This man," she declared, "has endangered our community, damaged my vehicle, and unleashed a herd of aggressive livestock." I sipped my coffee from the porch swing. Aggressive? They're cows, not wolves. Marjorie brandished a clipboard. Per Section 12B of the Whispering Pines Code, livestock must be contained to prevent encroachment on shared spaces. I pointed at the Cadillac's former parking spot. "Your president blocked my barn doors. That's my land per the 1965 survey. Want to see the deed?" Diana's eyes narrowed. "That's shared gravel." I stood, walked to the fence, and tapped a rusted boundary marker. "My property line's right here. Your car was 20 feet inside it." I measured. Ted shifted uncomfortably. Diana hissed something to her posse, and after a few more empty threats, they retreated. But I knew she wasn't done. The next day, a neon green violation notice appeared on my gate. Non-compliant exterior paint on barn roof. My roof was classic barn red, always had been. Then came more. Excessive noise before 7 a.m. My rooster, Hank, unapproved structures, my 30-year-old chicken coop, inappropriate signage, my hand-painted Harlan Farm sign. It was a petty onslaught, each notice a jab in her bureaucratic vendetta. I started a folder labeled Diana's Crusade and rigged a trail cam by the driveway. On day 5, she escalated. I found a kid in a rent-a-cop uniform by my gate, clipboard in hand, announcing, "This is a monitored access point. Farm traffic needs HOA clearance." I blinked. "You're on my driveway." He squinted at his notes. "We suspect non-compliant commercial activity." I pulled out my phone and started recording. "This man is obstructing private property with no legal authority. Leave, or I'm calling the sheriff." He backed off, mumbling about just following orders. Across the road, Diana paced her porch, phone glued to her ear, clearly not getting the response she wanted. I called my cousin, Ellie, a county agricultural inspector with a knack for sniffing out nonsense. "Swing by for surprise inspection," I said. "I want my operation bulletproof." 2 days later, Ellie arrived with a news crew in tow, filming a segment on local farms. She toured the property, checked the cows, and declared my farm a gold standard for livestock welfare. She said it loud enough for Diana, who was lurking on her porch, to hear. "I've seen hobby farms with worse conditions than this," Ellie added, grinning. Diana's face twisted like she'd swallowed a lemon. That night, I dug through my dad's old file box, hunting for ammunition. Buried under faded receipts, with a 1962 parcel map, yellowed but legible. It showed an access easement running right through Diana's property, her circular driveway, her koi pond. Her whole front yard sat on land my family still legally controlled. The subdivision hadn't nullified it. I called my buddy Sam, a retired surveyor, to confirm. He walked the property with GPS gear and nodded. "She's 6 feet into your easement, Jake. That's civil trespassing, no question." I didn't confront her. Instead, I hired a title attorney, drafted a cease and desist letter, and filed for a county boundary review. I also sent a polite note to the HOA board, flagging Diana's unpermitted encroachments. For 2 days, she went quiet, no patrols, no notices. Then she counterattacked, papering the neighborhood with flyers screaming farmer threatens community harmony. She held an emergency HOA meeting on her lawn, complete with a whiteboard labeled Reclaim Our Neighborhood. Only a dozen people showed up, half for the free brownies. When Walt, the HOA vice president, asked, "Diana, did you get a permit for your driveway?" her stammering silence spoke volumes. Then came the break. An anonymous envelope slid under my door, stuffed with screenshots of Diana's HOA group chat. She called my farm a blight on progress and admitted to parking in front of my barn to teach him a lesson. I forwarded it to my attorney and dropped copies in every neighbor's mailbox, no commentary, just the truth. The next day, Diana's prize koi pond fountain, a gaudy marble angel, was demolished by an HOA crew citing illegal construction. She screamed at them, but no one cared. A neighbor across the street applauded. I could have stopped there, but Diana had spent months trying to erase my way of life. I wanted to remind everyone why farms matter. So I planned a Harlan Farm day rides, milking demos, fresh cider, and a petting zoo. I got every permit, posted flyers, and invited the whole neighborhood, even Diana. To my shock, people rallied. Kids offered to paint signs, retirees manned the snack table, and the local papers sent a reporter. The day was magic. Kids chasing chickens, families laughing, Clara basking in ear scratches. Diana showed up at noon, clutching a binder of violations. I met her with a smile. "Permits filed, sheriff approved. Want some cider?" She froze as the news crew interviewed me by the well, kids petting a goat named Tinker in the background. She tried to corner Walt, but he brushed her off. The crowd had chosen. As she stormed off, she tripped over Hank the rooster and face-planted into a wheelbarrow of compost. The crowd gasped, then roared with laughter. Someone's video hit the internet, titled HOA Diana's Barnyard Blunder, racking up 50,000 views by dusk. She left in silence, her binder smeared with cow dung. But Diana wasn't done. A week later, a letter arrived, typed in all caps, threatening a lawsuit for community degradation. It was desperate, pathetic. I ignored it and unveiled my final move, a hand-carved sign by the barn private farm access. "Park here, get milked." Diana saw it, slammed her door, and fumed. Meanwhile, I've been circulating a petition to oust her as HOA president for harassment and abuse of power. I needed 30 signatures. I got 55, including her former allies. At the next meeting, I handed it to Walt. Diana tried to rally, but he cut her off. Let the neighborhood decide. They did. 89% voted her out. Days later, a moving truck pulled into her driveway. She left without a word, her Cadillac's fenders still faintly scratched. The new neighbors, a young couple with 2 kids, brought cookies and asked about the cows. The sign stayed up, a quiet reminder. That night, I sat on my porch, the barn lights glowing, Clara chewing cud in the distance. The air was calm, the fight was over, and the farm stood tall. Diana had come for my land, my cows, my life. She'd lost to a farmer, a tractor, and a herd that never forgets. If you were the one in this story, how would you react? Would you stand up and fight back, or accept the unreasonable pressure and control from the HOA? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this VY Deo with more people. Your small action gives us the motivation to keep bringing you more intense and engaging stories. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next VY Deo.